projects. And everybody has it, and I have it too on the ones that I've done.
I think the first couple of projects we actually did in Revit, one was in Texas with a contractor who had no idea what to do, and the other one was in California with a contractor that was very savvy with Revit, and they did not even allow on that project paper copies for the contractors to use. The model had to be accurate, and they had a big screen like this, and when they had questions, they'd go into the model and look at things. So it caused us
that's just the CAD
caused us a lot
background.
of issues on that.
To bring CAD and you drop the fixtures in the document.
Well, I guess just to talk a little bit about the view range.
For example, when you hit it, sometimes it will give you an error that refers to clipping, and yet there's another setting that says clipping, you have it turned off, and yet they're referring to something that's theoretically turned off. That's where it's maybe a nomenclature.
Yeah, and how I understand it when I first describe it is the top range. You got a whiteboard?
I can get you yeah.
Well, actually, I'll just do this in the program. My drawing's really bad. Let me see if I can, just let me get myself orientated here. All right, so we have a site level, which is 0. The first floor must be on a foundation that's 3 foot up. And then your second floor is 15, your rooftop's 25.
Maximally set by the architect.
That's normally set by the architect, that's correct. Oh, geez. So you look at your floor plan, and this is supposed to be a first floor lighting floor plan. So ideally, the first thing you got to check is the view name, and here, this one, associated level, level 1 first floor. So the view range is going to build itself off of level 1 first floor, which is this, which is the bottom, which is fine. But that's just kind of the first understanding of, okay, that's what that thing's supposed to be. We're showing the first level. You go to your view range, so you want your bottom to be the first level. So where you'd use an offset is if you wanted to go -5 feet down because you've got underground piping that you're showing, or you've got duct banks, or something below that first level that you want to show on that first level plan. That's where you would put in like a -5 feet. View depth plane is set above the bottom clip plane. So your view depth also has to change because you want to see lower than your associated level 1. Right now, Revit's only allowing you to see to that first floor level. So now how I have that view plane set is the bottom of our view is our primary range. The bottom is -5. We're also allowing us to see 5 feet below this level 1. So we're actually 2 feet below the site. So that's where I say it gets kind of screwy, and you have to understand what your view is associated with, because if this view was associated with the site level, then you're 5 feet further, and you might not be seeing anything on that first floor.
So it looks like that bottom has to be greater than or equal to the view depth.
Right. These two numbers, this number always has to be the same or equal to the bottom, because you got to stay in your top and your top and your bottom are the constraints that view will allow you to go to.
As referenced by whatever the
Right.
associated level is on the page after.
And now the top is sort of interesting here. I would have expected it to be level above, level 2, that being correct, but not 15 feet higher than that. Sometimes where you do see, because I think that's telling me that our top view range is this plus 15 feet, so 30 feet. So a lot of times when we have it set up like that, we'll have bleed through the roof. We'll have roof elements like you know, a rooftop unit or a PRV bleeding through onto that first level when we don't want it bleeding through on that first level. So a lot of times how we set up our level, and there could be a reason for it, you know, I'm not as familiar with the project, and it's not unheard of. A lot of times we'll see it where we're doing it for a particular reason where we have a second level, but it's just offices, and we have a warehouse that's wide open, so that those fixtures, those high bays or whatever, are up in that level, and we want to show it on the first floor plan. So it does happen. On a typical view range for this, I would expect to see that at 0, because we're not going to have any light fixtures on the first floor that are higher than the floor of that second floor, you know, that second floor level. So that's how I would typically see it. You know, I suppose you could want to go a little bit higher than that too if you were showing branch circuit conduit runs or something that could be in the slab of that second floor or something. I don't know. But that's kind of where you play around with that. Now the cut plane's interesting. That is where your slice is happening in that model. A lot of times it's set at 4 because you want to slice those doors. And doors are usually something like 6 feet or whatever, you know. So if you cut it at 4, you're gonna see on the plan the double doors. That kind of comes, if you're using a DWG as the background, do you actually have the walls and doors modeled?
In Revit?
In Revit?
Yeah.
Okay. Because sometimes on projects, we can get a background that's just a DWG, and we're just placing our 3D elements around on that DWG. And it's basically, you put it into a 3D and you just see electrical things floating around because they don't have any walls. But if you have a model like we have here, basically that's where we are cutting all your model's links. So at 4 feet, we take a big slice, and whatever that top shell looks like is what you're going to be seeing.
Can you relate it to the 2 other attributes, the top and the bottom? Is that between the 2, or?
It's got to be between the 2. I'm guessing if I were, so this is a, so this cut plane happens based on your associated level 1, which is, so your second level is at 15, so your top is at 30, so your primary view range is at 30. If we put this at 32, I think it would scream at me. Top clip plane is set below the cut plane. So your top range is below your clip plane. That can't happen. If I put it at 30, I think we would be okay. Let me try 29. So maybe it can't be the same either.
No, Kurt, all these, do we set them as electrical, or do they set with the software, or that's what also, like, these came with the model and we played with them to make our things show up. But like, I would like.
Can you see the background changing there though?
I want to change that cut plane. Can I change that one? Can I cut?
Nope, you can't change that one because you created the view when you went to because you got to remember this whole view is based on the first level. That was what the view was created from the beginning. If you create a new floor plan,
can I just walk you because
sure.
I set them up. Well, we have a 3D model, right? That comes from the architects, and then we create a central file. When you pick up the central file, really there's a couple of buttons you have to to hit, and then it will create this file for you. So I didn't set up the lighting floor here. It's already set up for me. It comes set by the system, like a floor plan cut by the system. I didn't do any input. When I did my central file, all these are set. All the levels are set by
Yep.
by the software, so I wasn't able to change that cut plane or something.
When you open up a brand new project, so from the start, if you do a brand new project, you're given a choice to select a template,
Yep, and we did the electrical.
and you did the
Absolutely.
electrical,
Yep,
and
yep.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Revit out of the box gives you 2 levels pre-made,
Okay,
and that's 1 and 2.
so these are default by the system.
They're default.
Yeah.
Now, Mashad Cooley Erickson, we've got our own template where we've
Nice.
blasted away the Revit ones, and we have 1 through 7 preset.
Okay,
And now at that beginning stage, what we do is we get from the architect their model, and they've got, say, 4 levels.
Yeah.
We open up our template, we match our level 1 with their level 1, their level 2 with
Okay.
our level 2. We match all those up right from the start, blast away the 3 that we didn't need because we've got 7 preset, and then we're creating our file.
okay, so there's the fundamental setup thing. Okay.
Right. The setup is the most important thing with a Revit project. And actually, I was involved in a project, the restroom project out at the airport, where our level 2 got associated with their level 1, and our level 1 was associated with their level 2. So switched around. It was a nightmare, and there was a lot of troubleshooting with that project, and it's making me bald.
Yeah.
And it's ongoing because, you know, that you can't really correct. So now that model is set that way,
Yeah.
and now we snap it into the Limburg main. It is already set, unless Mashad or somebody wants to go back and restart the whole project. It's sort of that way now
I see, and that's
for as long as it can go.
So once you establish a given view, that can't be edited.
Nope. You'll find it grayed out.
You showed us where we were.
See, this is grayed out too. Associated level is associated level. You're done.
Okay.
What you could do is, because your modeled elements never go away. So what you could do, you can always create another floor plan. You can do plan, floor plan. It'll give you a choice of what to create from. Now it's giving you level 3 and level 4 because we haven't created those yet. But if we say we want to duplicate a view, we can do that by unclicking that box. We select level 1 or level 2 or level 3 or level 4, and we hit OK, and it creates you a whole new one. And that's where that association comes right off the bat.
Now at that point, you can't, in that process, you can alter it.
Yep, that's where you select. Now those modeled elements will still be in here, you know, but now you got to set up your work set visibilities, your apply your view templates, get all your annotation over, because annotation doesn't bleed through. It's only on the view that you apply them. So there's still a lot of work to correct it that way. But that's the point of no return. You literally hit that OK, and that thing for the life of it will be associated with level 1. And you know, if you were really good with view ranges, I can make this thing look like a level 2 if we needed to. But it's all thinking about how it associates with level 1. So if I put the bottom of that view range to 15 feet above the first floor, my bottom is now that second floor. And then if I went 10 feet higher, now it's the roof plane, and then I made my cut in between that zone, it would look like a second level floor.
Well, if you add a work plane, that is a different structure. If I'm understanding this right, it's not the same as one of these associated.
Oh, yeah. So if you, yeah, we do that a lot too. Let me just,
That's a question I'm asking. If a work plane is a different structure than a level.
yeah, it's a different structure. It's, work planes are nice. They're just, you won't have the option to build any floor on them. So if you were to put in another level that you called like lighting height or something and associated all your light fixtures to that, somebody could make a floor plan out of a level. I guess. Well, that's interesting because work planes are a different structure. You can make them either act like a floor or you can make them act like a ceiling too. And that's probably the biggest difference with a level. A level will always act like a floor. It always sees itself as a floor of a level, not a ceiling. I'm pretty sure. Work planes we use a lot for mounting lights too. So if we're not sure what height we're supposed to be mounting these lights to yet, because we don't have a ceiling yet, we just mount them all to a work plane. Then once we get a ceiling and we know what height, then we just move that whole work plane to 8 feet and all the lights go with it.
So you prefer using work planes over reference?
I think so, but I'm not quite sure if there would be a difference.
And then there's a certain way that you have to draw the work plane too.
To make it either, yeah. Let me see. Let me put both of them down and then decide. Because now that you say that, I think we use planes. Or, I mean, reference levels. I can't find them. I feel like it should be right in here. BVS. This is always the fun part about troubleshooting on a program you don't use every day. You forget where everything is.
It's work plan.
Yeah. I would do a reference plane, which I guess is under the heading of work plane. And then depending, oh, what just happened there? Depending on how you place that, left to right or right to left, and I can never remember which way. But that's why you always put one fixture down and then look at the section. It becomes a ceiling or a floor. One of the good things about work planes is you can just name it something too. So call it 8-foot ceiling. Apply, and then you look for that work plane when you're setting your light fixtures down.
And you can host other things like mechanical equipment.
Anything that hosts can go on that.
Okay. And it's optional because it will give us a toggle box,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a drop down box. Unlike if we were making those other views where it's set in stone up there.
Yeah.
So Kurt, if I understand you right, then instead of like when we did lighting, if you go under ceiling, we placed our fixture in the already provided ceiling. So if I don't
I
have
would
the
do that
ceiling-
every time.
Okay, so that's a default.
Yep.
If I don't have the ceiling, then I will create this work view, and when you place your light, it will ask you if you want to place them on work view. Just drop them in the work view, set the work view.
Right.
Okay.
Every element you have is hosted?
That's an extract from visual.
Let me just
Yeah,
can I get you? Let me. First, are you in yours? In your project, guys? Are you in it?
Yes.
Okay. Can I? I'm gonna go get you into an already set. This is just my working. So close that one here. Don't save project in English or mine. Let me just get you quick into a project that has all the stuff already in it.
Sure.
Since what team are you guys, Nick?
Team 5, but I'm in that section.
Team, doesn't matter. Okay, team 5. So if you go sprint, those guys drop their fixtures. Design drawing, Revit, and we don't want to save though when we do that. Okay, open.
I won't save anything.
Override existing. So that will show you a whole the way we drop them. But we were playing like you did. We were playing with the level to try to hide the things that we don't want and so forth.
Right.
So that will show you all the fixtures dropped in and tagged. You guys tagged them, right? Plugged in and tagged and so forth.
So you have a large open area then that's open to the
Yeah, well,
structure?
the challenge with this model is there are multiple levels. There's manufacturing floor that goes from the first floor all the way to the
Rooftop?
to the roof. And then when you cut, wherever you cut, you're going to see certain things. So
Yeah.
it's
You probably want to use a filter
okay.
of some
so
sort.
So what we did in the past, you weren't here when we did the Revit. What we do is if we see them in the second floor, we just go hide in place and hide them and call it a day. That's kind of how we solved it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
the
not
poor
always the
man's
best way to do it, but
The poor man's way.
that's a way to do it. A lot of times with Revit, it's honestly just figuring out a way to make it work, and then you sort of move on. But we are getting, as we progress and evolve as a company, we are getting filters in there that will sort out those types of mistakes. And we have a standardized way of doing it. Because the concern about, obviously, the bad part about finding the solution is if somebody new came into that project, doesn't understand what happened or how you made it work this way, and then, it's impossible to kind of troubleshoot. So if you just do a random hide element, that's just
So this is the
it's a
whole.
poor man's way to do
Yeah.
it. So that's low voltage. So you got ceiling. So this is the big manufacturing.
Yeah, that was one of the problems, is we did have the situation where the high bay on one side of the building, and then 2 floors on the other side, just for the reason they described earlier, we needed.
Yeah. So these are just hidden elements, probably.
And we did lots of hiding in place just because of the air.
Yes, there it is.
So I don't know if you know that, but how you reveal them is you hit that little light bulb.
And you can click on it and
Yep. So I mean that's a fine enough way to do it. What we'll do as a company is in our light fixtures.
So Kurt, sorry to interrupt you. So this
Sure.
is the Fixture Series is hosted to the model, linked to the model here. So I can't move that. Once it sits on a level, right?
I don't think that's true.
Okay.
You can pick new host.
Okay.
So if you wanted to move it, you can select a work plane. I'm not sure why that. Oh, here it is. You could pick a different level if you wanted to shove it to something else.
Okay, that's what.
That's one way to do it. You can also select a face. So if you had a ceiling that came in, and yeah, you could plop it on there.
Go back again on that one, please.
Sure.
So what did you pick it up and you go to, okay, pick new. That's
Pick
it.
new, yeah.
Okay, let's go back there. Okay.
If you hover over anything for a period of time, I'm sure you guys all have noticed that, but it'll tell you what it does. Anyways, what we'll do a lot of times, what we do now as a company is we've got another parameter in here that's simply called filter. How we did it in the old days was we just used this comments thing. We didn't have a parameter for it. We just used something out of the box, but now we actually call it MCE filter. And you can put something in there like level 1 or level 2 or something to differentiate this light fixture from these light fixtures. So once you had that kind of cooking, you can go into visibility graphics to filters and can add a filter. Mechanical does this a lot. They've got domestic filter, cold water, hot water, showing different things for different items. We'll have one in here that's called like target, or not target, MCE lighting filter or something, and you can just drop it into your project. I don't think I want to create a whole new one because it's kind of a boring process, but basically it would give you I'll just throw in whatever this is. So it gives you a filter that's defined by something. So if our filter is defined by filter on light fixtures equals level 1, then anything that follows that formula, if you click off the visibility, they'll disappear. So the idea would be to have your filter parameter in this light fixture say something like level 2, and that filter will grab everything that says level 2 and it'll turn it off if you click off that visibility. So it's a little bit, you got to kind of understand what you're doing. The domestic one is they say filter by system classification, which is a parameter in the selected categories here. So that's all your piping. So anything with piping anything that has to do with piping has a parameter called system classification. If it contains domestic in that parameter, it will be controlled by this filter. So you can have a lot of fun with that, creating stuff to differentiate different parts of your building. So for light, we'd have one that's called light fixtures or something, and instead of selecting piping, we'd select light fixtures, and then we would select a parameter that we want those to be grouped by. Don't know if that all made sense, but if you play around with it, I know you kind of understand it after a while. That's another thing where in the MCE template, we want to have as many of those pre-made so that a lot of the users don't have to struggle with it. It just works. Because it's not as user-friendly. It doesn't. I don't know. It's like a lot of things with Revit. You gotta mess around with it to understand it, and then once you understand it, you think, well, they could have made this probably a little bit easier. But should we go in? Has anybody been into the family editor much? I mean, I assume some people have been fooling around. I know you have for work reasons. You shouldn't really do this unless you know what you're doing, but if you're in school, I would take the opportunity to kind of mess around with it. Don't mess up your project, but if you have extra time to just kind of look around at it, it probably isn't a bad idea.
You are in a project right now, just give me to take your away.
Not now, no. I won't screw anything up.
Okay.
I promise you.
Then they start trying me.
I won't screw anything up. If I do, I'll run away. So this is the family editor. Basically, there's a bunch of parts to this. It's set up the same as your project. You have views, different views that you can see the family. You're outside of your project. You're in the actual family file. You can bring in families into this family, so that's kind of what this is. Water would be good. Thank you. And then the actual screen here is built by the host, which is that big rectangular object. The actual family, which is that's your extrusion. And then your connector, which is that's your electrical connector. Couple of things to just point out. Your family types button brings you to the parameter screen. Unlike when you're in a project, that button brings you to both instance and type parameters. You can tell the difference by default is an instance parameter, and anything else that doesn't have that default is a type parameter. You can add them over here. You can change the geometry or whatever right here. Most of that stuff should look pretty kind of familiar just from working in the project. To get an understanding of how something is built, I always go to the floor plan first, take a look at it. A lot of times the annotations will be turned off just for view's sake, but if you turn that stuff on, it'll definitely clutter this up. This family is built with two things. It appears there's a detail component in here, which is the symbol. Oh, I recognize this one. I built this one. And then you have your geometry that's behind it. This is what we call a nested family. Basically, it's a family that's built with a 3D dimension, but in the 2D world, we want to be able to represent that using a symbol that doesn't look like the geometry. So this is the nested part. We've brought in what's called a detail component into this family. These are the lengths. These are locked and will change based on that parameter. And these equals dimensions are important too, because it's keeping that stretching. If I do it to 6 feet, it'll keep that center line. So that's what that's doing. And I suppose the best way to do is, that's just kind of, when you're looking at the family, that's what you have going on here. It's a bunch of dimensions, and it's a bunch of reference planes, and it's a bunch of things that all kind of come into one.
It does contain or can contain 3D.
Yep.
3D.
Almost every family that you run across will contain a 3D aspect.
And is it by definition 3D or a fancy annotation family or something?
Yep. Every family that's made except for detail, well, I wonder. I think every family that you try to create except generic annotations will give you the ability to make it 3D. So that ability's there. We don't do 3D for door contacts. It makes no sense to show that anywhere. So that's like a dead family, for instance. It's just it's nothing. There is no 3D in there. It's just a symbol. I don't know. I think last time I was here, I showed how to just build a family from scratch. I don't know how many people have tried to build a family. But basically you go to New, Family, and similar to starting a new project, it's going to ask you for a template. I'm in the habit of always using generic model. MCE, we don't host anything except for light fixtures. So most of the stuff I'm asked to build from scratch will just come out of the generic model, and then I assign it what I want it to be, a fire alarm, a receptacle, whatever. But you could start with a, you know, an electrical fixture. Oh, maybe you can't. We'll just do generic model. Generic model face-based is where I start if I am doing a light fixture. So maybe I'll just do that one. It's a little bit trickier, but we can just do like a simple 2x4 deal. Now you are working in a 3D environment, so when you're thinking about it, you want to start from a floor plan and also from something that'll give you a sense of depth. So I always use the left. The reason why I always use the left is because I get the pleasure of troubleshooting these things. So if I go back into the family, I want to know where I put those dimensions. So I always do left, I always do a floor plan, and then I put them side by side. Now, a family is built of 3 things. It's the skeleton, the body, and then the brains. The first thing you want to build is the skeleton of the project. So what I mean by skeleton is we want these reference planes set up in such a way that we can put an extrusion on it. So the first thing I do is I set my my planes down. I grabbed the wrong thing, I think. Come on. Oh, here it is. Reference plane. you kind of grab that. You mirror it. So you can kind of see we've got our length of the fixture. That's what's going to fit in between here and here, but we also need a width of the fixture. I'll grab the wrong thing again. Now the reason why I do two of them is because I want this thing to grow from a center point. So I want the center point of this fixture to be right here. So if I made it a 1x4, I want it to, if I went from a 2x2 to a 1x4, I want it to grow this way, not this way. So to accomplish that, we've got to say that these dimensions, no matter what I set them at, always have to be equal. These dimensions too, no matter what I set them at, I want them always to be equal. This line never moves. What moves are the two outer reference planes, because it grows like this, not like this. So now you can kind of see the skeleton of the 2x4 forming here. It's back here. Same with this, we want a depth to the light fixture, so we're going to need another dimension here. Same idea. We need a work plane. Now, one of the confusing things, and it takes a while to wrap your head around, is your reference plane is upside down. I think intuitively coming into this, you would think your fixture would come at the bottom of this host. It's not. It's the other way around. You build it up from the floor level. So this whole thing you got to kind of envision in your head is flipped around, and you're putting your light fixture onto that host. I don't know how else to explain it. I don't know why it's that way. It's just that way, and you sort of learn about it once you start actually building these things. So that dimension is going to be important. That's our depth dimension. We can put a label on that thing. How you do that, you just select the dimension, you hit add label. For the purposes of this, I'm not going to use a shared parameter because I'm not sure what your shared parameter file looks like. We can just call it whatever. We'll call it depth, something that makes sense. Usually I make it a type because 1x4 is going to have the same depth throughout. It's the same fixture, so we don't want it to be an instance. The dimensions of an object usually stay the same, so if we were to change it, we want to change it for all of them, not just one instance of it. So now that's associated with depth. If I go to this and I say I want you to be 4 feet, we should see that thing move up 4 feet. It's now controlled.
We want to use positive numbers for 4.
Yep. If you wanted it to recess in there, that's an interesting question. You could, don't think I've ever built anything that way. I think you could put in a -6. No, you can't. So that parameter is sort of like view range. It's built off of that one level. You can only use positive. No. I usually get a shop drawing and it'll say like 5" 3/4 or whatever. I just put 6. You don't. Kind of depends on what you're doing too. If it's a fancy fixture or something that you want to look nice, maybe you spruce it up. But a lot of times, we're not being asked to do that. If you wanted this recessed, what you'd have to do is put, so if you want that to recess into the host instead of being a surface mounted thing, you'd put this reference plane down here, and then you would grow it from this level down. So that happens too. That happens a lot. Same thing here. We need to define our width and our length, and that's the definition of our length. That's the definition of our width. We need to put a label on them. And throughout the process of creating a family, you're just kind of changing things a bit to make sure that it works. You don't want to do your extrusion and then realize something isn't working. That center point should have never moved, which it didn't. The length changed, the width changed. We've already seen that one change. So we've got our skeleton set. Now we need to put down the 3D element, which is the body of this thing. You go to Home. Here's your different 3D elements. The ones that I use all the time are Blend, Extrusion, and Void Forms. Extrusion I use 90% of the time. This is your simple rectangular block. Your Blend, like the picture will show, is an interesting one. We use this for like your cylinder type pendants or something that needs to, maybe it kind of grows like this. Definitely fancier decorative type things. Your voids I've used for can't think of a really good example. Light fixtures could certainly use that for a fancier type thing, but basically you're just taking a chunk out of your extrusion. Breakers, sometimes if we got a panel board and we want to show where a breaker would fit or something, that you could have a void. This stuff is architectural or manufacturers where they're doing really some fancy stuff. I had a big generator that had all sorts of funky stuff going on, and I don't know who built it, but it was pretty incredible. I don't do that. So now you do your extrusion. Basically, it's just like a detail line command. We want a rectangle. We want it to start at that corner, end at this corner. Now you'll see all these locks come up. Basically, that's Revit asking, do you want this line to be locked with this reference plane? And the answer is yes. Lock them all. One troubleshooting thing on a family is I'll often find that those weren't locked. If they weren't locked, when we change the length to 4 feet, this extrusion line will just stay here. It won't go with that reference plane. So, you're not seeing them? There's another way to get them to pull up. Let me get back into this thing. Edit extrusion is how you go back into an extrusion. If you're doing a line command and you select that reference plane and then select, shoot, mine are already locked, so they're not gonna. Try selecting the extrusion. Do they not show up? Try hitting align. The command align, hit your reference plane, and then hit the extrusion line. The lock should show up. Oh boy. Oh, now you've got me curious.
Putting the brakes on here. Hit align. This one.
make you understand how much behind the whole family is been on you. Time just everything creating time. So Kurt, do you guys create all your families, or do you use families out of the like Revit families? Do you grab these Revit already created families? Are they good?
No, we've never used any of the Revit created families. When we first started with Revit, there weren't a lot of manufacturer options, so we built electrically all of our families. Now moving forward, we do ask the manufacturer if they have one, and then we try to strip it down.
Like Lithonia, they have a lot of families. Like we use Lithonia, and you can download all the. I'm just wondering if they're good. Or they, I never use them because the ones that are given to us. I'm just curious. Maybe they use them.
The reason why we don't just take manufacturers' families and put them in is because they'll put a lot of like Lithonia in there, and we want to open up that bidding process. And then there's also the problem of there's too many parameters in them that are unnecessary, and they have to be our parameters to work with our schedules. So by the time you actually strip away the manufacturer's work that he's done, you might as well have just built it.
Someday they might all get organized, everybody will have somebody that has a standard set of parameters. But hours for scheduling,
The same thing, Kurt and Phil, we struggled with like air handling units and chillers because we have to drop them to circuit them, and we use the Imperial Library has a bunch of them. Do you guys have your own families for that chillers and I assume?
Yep.
Okay.
don't even go down the mechanical road right now. It's a touchy subject.
I was just going to be kind and say yep.
That's been the problem. Mechanical engineers are very particular on what kind of information they need in the schedule. It's getting tough to get all of them to be internal.
Okay, so
The family builders can build the families that give them what they want. All we want to do is take out.
yeah, that's.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm saying this because I'm sorry to interrupt you, because we were struggling with the mechanical schedule. Right now, we do it in two ways here. We do it either in some of them we're doing it right now with Excel, and we import to CAD and we export back into Revit. We did it in Revit in CAD and we import it into Revit. But we really like to build that whole schedule in Revit. Then you have to have the parameters about the mechanical equipment. So anyway.
So to finish your extrusion, you just hit the check mark. And now that thing is sitting here. At this point, I always test to make sure everything goes where I want it to go. At least, you know, not depth. Length and width-wise, just make sure it looks okay, and it did. It's moving like I kind of want it to. And now you got to look at the depth part of it. And this is another way that you can get that that lock to show up. I should have thought of this. When you select the extrusion, these little grippers show up. You move it up to that line, your lock will show up. And you need to lock that one because we want it to move with this depth parameter. You grab the other end too, lock it. Although it looked like it was on there, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's locked. So you got to make sure that it locks there. And now we test the depth. We'll call it 5-6 inches. And now it's down.
That's why you were going to keep. Okay, it's just there.
Setting the skeleton, it doesn't. You kind of do want it just to be bigger because you're gonna kind of fine tune this thing as you test it. And so now you have a generic face-based 3D element. And one of the last things that you do is you go to family category and parameters. And instead of a generic model, you call it a light fixture. You look at some of this other stuff. There's a light source option. Actually, Nick might know a bit more about this stuff than I do because you've been looking at the photometric stuff for us.
Yeah. The one thing right now is where we're gonna place it
Mm-hmm.
in the fixture, and if we're having trouble with the extrusion itself bouncing and screwing up photometrics, which so far we don't think that does have anything to do with it. It's just have to talk to John a little bit more about it. And into that stuff.
So this is for lighting calculation.
Right.
If you do lighting calculation, it would be a big deal.
I think it's safe to say, I mean, we don't do it, we still use our AIG or software or whatever now. This is kind of, it should be happening in Revit, but I don't think industry-wide it's happening. It is happening in projects. I'm sure people have figured it out. But at least for us yet, it's still kind of, we're investigating whether or not. So what you don't want to do is think that you did a photometrics and actually it's not right. So
So that's why if we go through and test a few of them,
yeah,
you know, this orientation, check it against the AGI and say, okay,
yeah,
well, it's matching up.
that's probably where the most of our electrical development is heading now. Is we've got our families and sort of our library established. We're still tweaking it. We will always be tweaking it, but now we're moving more into the calculation side of it, where we're even trying to figure out how can we do panel schedules and loads and things that the engineers will trust, you know, because we've been using power tools for a long time and it's always worked, and now it's sort of trying to move all of that into one area. And
Set on target and use out of the box. Revit load summaries. And you can sign stuff with it. Like for that kind of a project, and the thing that you gotta remember, you may not, you'll catch this as you gain experience, but no matter what the computer says, when you run, like, you run lighting calculations, or if you run power calculations, and it says you need this, it still has to pass smell test. And there's a certain size that, and nodes that, you know that when you do a project like this, if it comes up saying you need a 400 amp service, that doesn't feel, it's not right. And you can say, yeah, but this is what the computer says. Well, it's like, and it's the same with lighting. The lighting will say, it says this, and they'll say, yeah, but it doesn't feel like, you know, this kind of space, you know, this kind of space. So there's things that don't just blindly trust. It looks pretty, but it gives you a really nice look and bad response. And, that's it still has the best smell.
One other thing that we would probably do with this, but you don't have to, is you create a symbol over the top of this. If your symbol is something that doesn't represent the geometry at all, meaning the receptacle, that has nothing to do with the box, it's just out of the blue, it's a circle with two lines, that would be a generic annotation family that you'd create and then load into this and then place. If it's a 2x4 where you actually, the symbol actually does match what's going on, you would create a detail items, detail component family that you would nest into this project.
And as far as powering it, how would you do that? I know you guys have to get one from soon, so. This is actually
I'm actually scared that it's my car. I know. You want to go check that? I wonder if I hit my panic button. That would be really funny. Next time it turns on. Boy, I have a shortcut for it on my computer, so it might take me a while to find it. Yeah. That's a good question, because there's numerous little things like this that you got to get on there, and the connector is an important one.
Electrical, right there. Electrical.
Did you see it?
Electrical, right there.
Oh, sweet. Okay. This will ask you for a face to place it on. A lot of times it kind of makes sense. Maybe not right there. It probably makes the most sense for it to be on the back of the fixture. You can always, I think we could move that. Maybe it's already stuck there. Doesn't really matter. The lines come off of it. So it could be on the side, it could be on the face, it could be anywhere. It just needs to be there. You do a properties of that thing, you'll come up with this. Number of poles, if it's a 277 volt fixture, you want it to be 1.
Kurt, right there, can you make it accept 1, 2, 3? Like if there's gonna be a 3-phase, I know it's not 3-phase fixture, but say 3-phase load, is this just leave it 1 and that would be 1, or if I want to leave it only 1, 2, 3?
If you want an option,
Yeah, that's
what you'll have to do is tie it to a parameter that's in the fixture.
okay.
So you do a number, let's create a number of poles,
Okay.
and you make it an instance parameter, and you hit OK. Now, as a user, when you go in with this light fixture,
You can pick what.
you will have the option.
Okay. Because in J boxes, we were looking, some J boxes have 120.
Yep.
Well, same thing for the voltage too?
Same thing for the voltage.
Okay. That's
Now, on a light fixture like this, you're not going to want, you're going to want every one of these 2x4s to be 277 volt or whatever. So you'd have that as a default. You wouldn't change it. There's probably no reason to have it. Junction box is a perfect example where you would want to.
yeah. Okay, so you defaulted to number 1 pole because of fixture.
This one's not. This one, you can have the option of changing it to whatever you want. How I have it set up right now.
Okay.
You just do that. You click number of poles. It's an instance parameter. So
Okay.
this number of poles will forever be linked to the number of poles in the family. That's what we call it mapping. You select that little button right there. It'll ask you what you want that value to be mapped to, and you put in a parameter for it to map to. If you have that at instance, then you can change it to be 120 to whatever you want, really.
You can have the same symbol right now. One of them is 120, the other is 277.
Yeah, you could.
Without changing the edit cover to. Okay.
Let me. So that's our new fixture that we just created. I think if I wanted to circuit this.
Oh, yeah, it's on,
Doesn't have a voltage. You have to give it a voltage, no?
no, it's on.
Shouldn't have to.
It's on the bar, well, I'm trying to think of what it is for you. It's on the bar.
Oh, here it is. Power. That's what pulls up.
And then what you do is on it.
If I turn it to 3, you'll have those options.
And these came with like, go to 3. So when we went to 3, it changed it to, it defaults to the standard voltage system.
That's all based on, that should all be set up by using that electrical template.
Yeah, I see what you, okay.
That's all right at the beginning too.
Okay, because you use a template, yeah. Okay,
Right.
makes sense.
So all of those green also preset.
Yeah.
Yep.
Click one more time. Click on it, please. The same one that you did, and go to property. Same. Okay. So now if I change each one of them individually, can be different folders.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if I had,
Gotcha. Okay.
copy this one over here,
Yeah, I can make one of them 277. Okay,
Yeah.
if I want to.
if you want to.
Okay, gotcha.
That doesn't happen a whole ton with
Yeah,
light
that's what I mean.
fixtures. It's, the junction box is a
Junction
great
box is
example.
what we struggle with more than-
Yeah. And that's where we'll have multiple connectors on them too, so that you could have whatever you wanted going through there.
The PDUs, we have PDUs to model that Paul did for us, and the PDUs to, you can power it in 208 or 120. Not the PDUs, I'm sorry, the computer racks.
Oh yeah.
So that was another one that you can use multiple connectors on them too, or connector with different
Yeah.
voltages and ports.
The problem you'll find is if you tag the circuit, it only tags the primary connector. So you got to use text for those secondary connectors. That's pretty. I mean, that's pretty much it. The detail component looks the exact same as this. You're just plopping it on there, and it's got symbology or whatever.
Now, Kurt, you showed the fixture. I could have done a generator, a panel, any family base.
Yep, you could do any family.
Can you just
It's all the same idea.
one little thing, since I'm recording you, by the way. I don't think you know that you'll be
No,
recorded.
I had no idea.
Shouldn't have said that.
I think you got to clear that.
I shouldn't have said that. Oh my God.
Oh
Can you
no.
throw the symbol over this one? Just walk us through throwing a symbol, like a receptacle symbol
Do you have them somewhere?
or, oh boy.
Or do I got
Are
to
they in
create
CAD
one?
format? You want them in a CAD?
No, you want them in Revit.
In Revit?
Here, I'll just draw something quick.
Yeah.
Shouldn't take too long.
Just curious as to, like, see if it was a receptacle. I want to throw a receptacle.
Well, I don't know if they just have symbols broken out. That's what I mean.
I'm not sure. I'm not really.
Actually, what I could do. Hold on.
Is that
View.
another?
There we go. So here's a symbol that's already made. Now that's nested in this family. So if I hit Edit Family, I go into how that symbol was made. Symbols are really complicated. I'm glad I didn't just try to build it. But see, you got your circle in there. You've got, same as before, an MCE length and MCE width. So that thing changes with those parameters. You know, it's basically just line work. There's no geometry with this. All it is a symbol.
Okay.
So once you had that created, you just hit load into project.
You
It'll.
just dump it. How did you bring it and dump it over that model that you did?
That's what I'm doing right now.
Oh, okay.
You hit load into project. Family 2 is the one that we just created right now.
I see.
You load it in, and I always put it off to the side first. So now it's just sitting over there. I want this end to be aligned with this end, this to be aligned with that. And I also want it to be the same size as this length and this width. So this has parameters. This also has a width and a length. So I want to map those with the ones that I have in here. So MCE width should be linked with our width in the family. Those should always be the same size. MCE length from the symbol should be linked with our family's length. Those should always be the same size. See how it changed? Now if I change this to a 2x2 fixture, the symbol should change as well. The final thing is to align that symbol over the top of this. I grab one end, grab the other end, it snaps over, and I want to lock it. grab the reference plane I want to align to, grab the symbol, lock it. Now that thing should move with it.
And grows with the geometry.
Right.
But it's a 2D.
2x4. That's all 2D. Yep.
Okay. If it was a receptacle, what would you do different? That's the only thing.
Nothing.
Okay.
Really nothing. I would. The receptacle doesn't. Yeah.
The symbol itself.
The symbol has basically no relation to that geometry.
Okay.
So you're basically just snapping it to where you want it to show up as it relates to that box.
Okay.
So if we had a box here or whatever, I'd bring that symbol in, I'd put its legs on this line so that it's sitting at the midpoint of that box, because we do, middle of the junction box is 18 inches off the finished floor or whatever. So that's where you got to kind of think about where you want that symbol to be.
Okay.
But it's really no different. And the whole thing, and I hope I kind of explained that, is you're testing it as it goes. So now it works in the family editor. Now you're bringing it into the project and seeing how it behaves. And you sort of, I have a couple of different test things. I put it on a ceiling. I move the ceiling, make sure the light fixture goes with the ceiling. I change the size in the project, make sure that it changes size in the project. Make sure it shows up on plan correctly. One other thing you'll always want to do is, especially for receptacles, is you don't want the extrusion showing up in, so there's visibility settings. I select the extrusion, I hit visibility sections, and it gives you an option as to where you want that extrusion to show up. We don't want it to show up on plan because we have a symbol that has it show up on plan. So I usually check that off and keep the other ones on. Front back means if you were to cut a section, do you want to see that geometry? Yes, you do. So we have that show up, left, right, same deal. You can also, this is where you can put coarse, medium, and fine detail levels on it. Say doesn't show up right, but if I had those parabolic lenses or whatever, and there's 24 little spaces in this fixture, maybe I only want that to show up in a very fine view. So I take that extrusion, select it, and say you only show up in a fine view. In a regular coarse view, if you just throw it up in a 3D, I don't need that. I just need the actual rectangle box. So there's different things, and manufacturers do that type of stuff too. Maybe they got like a connector width that they show, but we don't need that in a coarse view, only in a very fine view. So you can assign different view levels to this thing to make it less complicated in the 3D world.
One thing about the light source is that when we place it in the past, it will be at the wrong angle. So a lot of the overhead time will be, a little bit over straight, and then we put the IES file to it. So it should give us a good photometrics of it, but it's got to be right at the edge of the fixture. So it's not going to be in the extrusion.
Really?
Yes.
So like actually an 1/8 inch off of the fixture?
Right. So if you had the fixture here, and you want to bring your light source just right here, and then it shows the web.
Otherwise it bounces in that extrusion?
That's what we're still testing. I believe it's going to bounce in that extrusion.
Yeah.
And we tried it a couple different ways, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. That whole light source thing is, I haven't had any luck with it. And so we've just kind of punted it to Nick. Go for it. Have you gotten any photometrics to show up right?
Yes.
Correctly?
Yeah. In the Loom tools, they were showing and they matched up with the API file. So.
Oh, cool.
We're just gonna kick off so like 1 or 2 fixtures and then do a double check and test, like you say, you do a lot
Yeah.
of testing and stuff.
Yeah, you want to test it. Make sure it passes Phil's sniff test.
Kurt, I do have a question. Any
Sure.
questions about anything the family? What I wanted you to understand, and thank you Phil for bringing Kurt here, is it's detailed. There's a lot of things that you guys have to do, but it's really not hard when you get your
not hard.
mind into it. And Phil, help me here, correct me if I'm wrong, most of the companies will have somebody like Kurt who specializes in this, and everybody else will be using these families. You guys don't allow anybody to get into your families and start editing them.
No, in fact, it's not impossible like that.
By that.
There's only a few people that, you can imagine, you see what happens when somebody, and there's guys that wanna do it, they start off on their own, but then the next project or something happens, or we reuse projects, or build upon the last project, or we're trying to keep everything standardized. We can't have Kurt's library and Paul's library, and Brandon's library, and, well, I like this one, so it just doesn't, it can't work. It can't work inside. Maybe in small, two-man shop, something like that, or something, it's you. Until you decide you're gonna leave. And what the guys that are left.
So that's what I wanted Kurt to say is, it's involved, you guys can specialize, they become the expert if they want to as they go, like Kurt, but, I mean, at one time you have to kind of focus where you're gonna be going, either design or CAD or lighting or somewhere else, so.
Yeah, that's not to say that at the shop careers came to work for that room, but that you couldn't, be more of a Revit focused guy with a design background than a design guy that has to use Revit to get a project. I think it's strictly up to you, and actually probably can happen. Like Evolution, they had one guy at the office at the WE who kind of fell into it after Kurt went to another project. He's been the guy, but I don't think he doesn't really want it. So he's trying to move away from that and get into engineering again, rather than be a Revit guy to work with. So that it's just kind of an evolution. What's trying
Yeah.
to Kurt would do that? And, we probably still have some of the guy, but not.
No, not really. I mean, there's a whole committee, like, it's a whole CAD committee, and that thing's kind of funny too, because, I volunteered for it thinking, oh yeah, this is great, I can show the company what I want to do, and then, about a year later, you're like, oh God, I don't want to be on that thing anymore, But it kind of happens that way. Once you get into a company, you're trying to figure out how things are done, how you can make it better. You get onto a couple of committees, and then you want to get off of them. And then the new guys come in and kind of take it over. So it's not one guy that does it all. It's it's a group, and they'll manage it. And if you're interested in doing it for a company, yeah, I have the sense it's something that you'll volunteer for on the side of your design stuff, and then before you know it, you'll want to be just doing your design projects and not dealing with the CAD stuff anymore.
Maybe. I mean, there's guys.
That's how it worked for me.
Yeah.
Kurt, I know you guys have to go, but we had a little issue. If it might be very easy for you when we ran a schedule. Here's a schedule for, and I know you guys it shouldn't take that much. I know, I promise you. When we ran a schedule, lighting schedule, some of these fixtures here's a schedule here. They were showing that they are in one room, but they're in a different room. So, okay, this one is not showing in a location. I don't know if this group was, see, we see the location here. Okay, those guys are not, it's not doing it. So the location was in one place, but it's showing on a schedule in a different place. Okay, so this might not be the, I don't know if it's an issue with the family being hosted, or it's not showing it here.
Probably an issue with the, well, I don't know. It's interesting. This doesn't have a location at all. Where is it?
Yeah, let's go to the, that's what I
Is it on the power plant?
should be on the power plant. Yeah.
First floor?
Yep. Should be in the generator.
Is that back here?
Yeah. It's a receptacle panel right here. right here.
Yeah, I think,
It's because it's not a room, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Everything that's here with a line and then that little cross is a room.
So that's why some of them are shown.
Not identified.
Right, so that room hasn't been identified as anything. It's got 4 walls, it looks like a room, but Revit doesn't think it's a room. So what I would do,
Okay.
It's probably turned off.
is it hidden?
Is it hidden? I don't think so.
Oh, but it would still show up because the room would be defined.
Oh, name it Chad.
Mechanical room. I see.
And this might take a little bit more
That's okay.
time,
Not
but
big. I know there's a.
I would look at how you create a
Yeah.
space. Usually,
Yeah.
I'm not as familiar with that because mechanical is more concerned
We have
about
to
the
look at the
space.
model and see.
They love spaces, and I hate spaces and would rather them never be created. But
From what I understand, architects place rooms.
yep,
Engineers and designers place
spaces.
for calculation purposes.
And I'm not sure if this thing reads location as a space or a room.
Yeah.
You might have to do something in the architectural file.
Yeah, that's what we need to look at the
Yes,
model
yeah,
that we have.
Really?
Okay,
Okay.
that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. It's
Yeah.
good time. Thank you. Thank you.
I got cards.
Give me 1 second here.
If anybody's got questions or something.